Hey everybody, welcome. I thought I'd set up a bit of a watch-along video of one of my all-time favorite movies, Midnight in Paris. If you're new to this channel, I'm a tour guide in Paris, and I've been in the city for over 10 years, absolutely in love with every aspect of it. And so obviously this movie is near and dear to my heart, and I can watch it over and over and over again. Obviously, so I'm going to play it all the way through in one shot here and give my comments and reactions as a tour guide and whatnot. And so obviously I can't show it to you for copyright reasons. I can't play the movie for you, but the idea is that you'll have your version alongside and you'll play it with this video in real time, and we'll kind of be watching it, the exact scenes together as they unfold. Because we're using different versions, maybe you have a DVD or it's another streaming service or it's on your computer, just go ahead and pause the opening credits when you see this. When you see this credit, pause it. If you happen to have the same version, which is the Amazon Prime Video version, then you should be at 40 seconds exactly. 40 seconds. If you are at 40 seconds right now, then the good news is I'm going to put this timestamp up that will be running throughout the whole video, and that means that you'll be able to sync up your copy of the film with what I'm watching at any given time. But if you got a different version, don't worry. As long as you pause the movie and this video at the same time, if you need to take a break or whatever, then everything should stay in sync. Here, I was going to make a nice big pot of coffee and drink a bunch of café crème while I was watching this. It seemed perfect, but I did a test of that, and the microphone was just picking up every slurp and swallow and gulp, and it wasn't very attractive, to be honest. Is there such a thing as being a loud swallower? Because I think... Anyway, so these are just props here. But the candle's real, the plants are real, but yeah, there's no café crème. Oh well. Lastly, I plan to post this video as a YouTube premiere, which means there'll be sort of a scheduled time or an event when it gets posted for the first time. So if you're watching the premiere right now, know that you can chat in the chat box of YouTube, and the super chats are there, the donations, the super stickers, all of that stuff, if you feel like supporting the cause. So let's get started. Hopefully you've got your version of Midnight in Paris to this point, and we're going to start on 3. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Ah, the best intro ever. I don't think any movie, I mean, probably something out there does, but very few movies do such a great job of setting the mood and the atmosphere and telling you what this movie is about. Paris is obviously the main character. And by the time this montage is through, you are just so ready to be in Paris. So well done for that. I noticed too, not the first time I watched it, but now when I look at it, Woody Allen was just unabashedly just yellow filter over everything, like super saturated, vibrant. And it makes sense because, you know, it's got the vintage romantic nostalgic feel. That's clearly what he's going for. Place de la Concorde here we see many times in this montage. I've found that they must have gone and they filmed the same squares and the same street corners several times, just from different angles. So it was really clever, I guess, for efficiency. But so we see some of the same spots 3, 4, 5 times in this montage, but they hide it well. This music is Sidney Bechet. And Woody Allen, being a clarinetist, clearly must be a big fan of Bechet. Again, Place de la Concorde. We only see the Louvre Pyramid once, though. He was judicious with that. The Opera House. Place de la Concorde again. They went really heavy on this square. And what a great idea to show the progression of a day. You know, just the fact that they included these rainy shots make you realize, like, oh, okay, we're spending a day in Paris. We start in the morning, it's sunny, it's bright, it's yellow. We get a rainstorm later in the afternoon, and then we go into Paris by night. So there's a nice chronology here that brings you through it, and maybe without that, the montage might seem a little bit long or repetitive. I mean, for Paris lovers, we don't care. We could watch this over and over, but for the sake of the average viewer, I think just the simple act of putting the rainy shots in there makes us feel like we're moving throughout the day. This is all Saint-Germain-des-Prés. That's the place where I used to start my tour of Saint-Germain-des-Prés. This is the Parc Monceau in the 8th arrondissement. We see a few shots of the park. Highly recommend it if you haven't been before. The Pont Neuf. And here, I always expect the tower to sparkle at the end, but he decided not to go that route. You're going to see there in Giverny and Monet's gardens. And most people who visit Giverny at some point have that same thought, right? Of like, what if we just threw everything away and moved here for real? Of course, what's unrealistic here is you would never get that bridge alone on a nice sunny day like this. Giverny, as you know, if you've been there, you know it tends to get pretty packed whenever the weather's nice, but that's a bit of movie magic. That's fine. Suspension of disbelief. This is a hotel called the Bristol, the Bristol. This is on Rue Saint-Honoré. This is the hotel where Woody Allen actually stayed in while he was filming the movie. And currently it averages about €1,000 a night. You can tell by looking at the lobby. Here they're in Le Grand Véfour. So clearly, Woody Allen's laying it on thick, the antagonists of like picking out every bad thing about Paris. Those people do exist. I've met a few of them. But all through the movie, they do a really good job of being nasty about Paris, which sets up the story, obviously. So this movie is called, this restaurant's called Le Grand Véfour. It's in the Palais Royal, if you didn't know. All of this decor is legit. It's from the 19th century. The restaurant's even older than that. Here comes the pretentious, pedantic character. This actor, Michael Sheen, does a perfect job with this character, by the way. Now, the window you see behind them there, it's intentionally frosted because normally you'd be looking out into the columns of the Palais Royal with people walking by. So interestingly, this window, you're supposed to be looking right outdoors, but for the movie, they decided to block it. They probably put up a screen. She's self-conscious about pronouncing Sorbonne. That's so classic, by the way. If you love Paris and the history of the city, that's enough. That's a great anecdote. That's a fun fact. But for other people who aren't really into it, they're like, that's it. That's a story. The guy was eating sauerkraut. So that really speaks to me. I mean, this movie absolutely speaks to me. One of my favorite actresses here, Rachel McAdams. I think she's just brilliant in everything she does. Really, really good. She usually plays sort of the sweet, you know, protagonist, heroine, someone we're all rooting for. But here, her role is a bit different. If I'm not mistaken, that's exactly what pretentious guys who want to pretend they know everything, that's what they say. I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Says the name wrong, by the way. It's Louis Leveau, which is. I wonder if that was intentional, that he screwed up. He thinks he's being clever, but he screwed up the name. I don't know if that was on purpose. He's not wrong, but I mean, on paper, he's right. But I'm someone I know you're out there as well. I don't know. It just feels so great to fantasize about living in another period. It feels so right. Here in Place Vendôme. Look at how he just comes and invades the whole shot, imposing himself. Every tour guide's nightmare. Luckily, it hasn't happened to me too often. Sticking it to him. I love that line. Here we go. He's drinking wine in France, but I really prefer Napa Valley. Just slipping in those little digs all throughout the movie to set up the contrast. Here they're at the rooftop of Le Meurice on the Rue de Rivoli, looking out over the Tuileries Gardens here that we can see. Tour Montparnasse and Les Invalides in the distance there. I've yet to make it to the rooftop here of Le Meurice, but that view at sunset, whew. Here they're exiting the Meurice. If you're ever here in front of this entrance on the Rue de Rivoli under the colonnade, if you look closely at the entrance of the hotel, there are still a few bullet holes left over from the liberation of Paris in World War II. Because the Nazi command headquarters was in this hotel of Le Meurice, so when they came in, they had to flush the Nazis out, and there's still a little bit of damage around there. You'll get lost. Okay. Best city to get lost in, obviously. Funny. They're setting up that he never lets anybody see his book, but of course he will soon. Here he's at the base of the Rue Mouffetard in the 5th arrondissement. There's a square with a fountain at the base of Rue Mouffetard, and that's where he is here. And the classic, we've all been here if we've been to Paris, being a flaneur and roaming around. You always have those moments where you're just like, I don't know, I guess I'll just go that way. And it usually turns out pretty well. This music here is by a contemporary jazz musician called Stéphane Rambel, and he had worked previously with Woody Allen on another movie. So this is a contemporary jazz song, but fits in perfectly. You see he's going to approach the church. You see those street lamps were props. They were added. They don't exist in real life. You kind of see they hid the attachment behind the pipes, the gutter pipes. And of course, here are the magic stairs. The question is, which step exactly is he sitting on? Is it the 3rd? Is it the 4th? Has anyone figured that out? So the bell strikes midnight, and of course, that's where the magic happens. I'm assuming that you've all seen this before. That's why I'm talking over it incessantly. So if I didn't mention, this church is Saint-Étienne-du-Mont in the 5th arrondissement. So the question I pose to you is that if you were alone in Paris and this happened to you, this exact situation, what would you do? Would you say, oh no, I'm good, have a good night, sorry? Or would you say, let's see where this leads me? This music we hear is the kind of the go-to soundtrack whenever he's strolling through town. We hear it a lot. Détendez-vous, buvez du champagne, relax, have some champagne, drink some champagne. This is Ile Saint-Louis. Um, on the left-hand side, those are real street lamps, but the ones that you see attached to the doorway on the right, do you see they're a little more orange? Do you see the color difference between on the left, which are the real ones that exist, and on the right side, the orange ones were props? So if you look carefully, there's a slight difference in coloration. So that's Cole Porter. Fantastic song. The lyrics are great in this song. I didn't know it until I watched this film. Cole Porter lived in Paris, married an American woman there, and they had these lavish, sort of hedonistic parties in their luxurious apartment. He was actually homosexual, but at a time where you would sort of keep it on the down low. This was the first time I saw the actor Tom Hiddleston, who plays F. Scott Fitzgerald, and he's fantastic. He does a great job in this movie, and he has since just gone, his career has taken off. Sure does, he says. She does a great job too, this actress. The street's next to the Pantheon, between the Pantheon and Luxembourg Gardens. Here we get the Josephine Baker vibe. Josephine Baker, an incredible Parisian character. She was an American, but African American, came to Paris, just absolutely killed it, really built an amazing career for herself. She moved to the city in 1925 and spent most of her adult life in Paris and in France. Really, really loved it, very well received by the French. Of course, at a time where there was race relations were much better over here than they were in the States. They filmed this on location at La Pérouse, which is a beautiful old restaurant on the Seine in the 6th arrondissement. He's like, I'm freaked out, but I'm just going to go with it. Acceptance. And of course, here we get the iconic scene of Le Polydor, Polydor still exists if you're not familiar in the 5th arrondissement, close to Luxembourg Gardens. Here they're hiding Hemingway right there behind that guy on the right, because they're going to reveal Hemingway in a minute. So if you ever go to this restaurant and you want to know exactly where they placed Hemingway's character here, look behind him. There's a little part of the wall that juts out where it says Cassis. So when you walk into the Polydor, on the right-hand wall as you enter, there's a section of the wall that juts out almost like a little pillar. So for what it's worth, if you're a super geek about this movie like me, you can sit right where Hemingway sat in this movie. Again, they frosted the mirrors behind there to reduce the reflection and not distract the scene. Normally those are reflective mirrors in the back. Same there next to Hemingway. This is so true what he says. That's dead on, actually. No, don't leave. Big mistake. I can feel his heartbreak. Can you imagine? This is like a classic anxiety dream. Having the best night of your life, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, it's gone? What happened? This laundromat is also near the base of the Rue Mouffetard, where he was walking, where he got lost earlier. It's not really that close at all to the Polydor, where they were just filming in the restaurant. It's a good mile away. I guess they were just looking for the right facade, the right laundromat that seemed to match up with the front of the bistro. This shop is again next to the Parc Monceau in the 8th arrondissement. Swanky part of town for sure. Gorgeous church here that a lot of people don't know about as much. It's a cathedral called Saint Alexandre Nevsky, and it's a Russian Orthodox church. The opening hours of that cathedral are a little bit wonky. It's not very easily accessible, only on certain days at certain times, but it's beautiful. I intend to get back inside it one day. Back to Etienne Dumont. So again, the fake prop lamps there. I wish they existed in real life because they look great in this shot. There's water running along the curb here, which usually they only do during the day, where the city workers open the valve to flush out the curbs of cigarette butts and stuff. But you can see the water's flowing on the curbs here, and I don't know why they would be doing that. Certainly not in the middle of the night. It makes me even wonder if they were doing this somehow during the day and then used a filter to make it look like it was at night. Because the fact that the water in the middle of the night would normally never run down the curbs like we see on the right-hand side. You can see this water in the curb. Anyways, it's a random detail, but it caught my eye. little bit of foreshadowing here. Remember what he said about how really good love makes you forget death or not have a fear of death, because that's referenced later on. Gertrude Stein. So this is Alice B. Toklas, Stein's partner. They were a big power couple, the two of them, when they were in Paris. Kathy Bates does a very good job here. Marion Cotillard. That portrait you see behind his head is the portrait that Picasso would have done of Gertrude Stein. Very classic painting. And this is what her apartment would have looked like, with the Picassos and Matisses and all sorts of amazing stuff hanging on the walls all around. She and her brother were big-time art collectors. Smoking was definitely more elegant back then. I still wouldn't have done it, but it was more elegant. So this character, not a historical character, just sort of an amalgamation of Picasso's mistresses. What a great actress she is. Here they're at Le Marché aux Puces in Saint-Ouen, north of the city. This is specifically the Paul Bert market. Look here towards the left next to the red awning, there's like a big tall bush that's actually hiding a bathroom sign. I used that restroom when I was at this market, so clearly they wanted to hide that for the movie, so that bush was placed there very strategically. Of course he's an expert in Monet. So if you don't know, this is the Musée de l'Orangerie. Highly recommend it. If I'm not mistaken. He's so proud of himself. Too rich for me. He's like, French food's too rich. Not a fan. Look how the father's perturbed by the dog at the table, which is such a classic thing. The French absolutely do that. Bringing the dog right up to eat with them. He's so bothered by the dog, he looks back like 6 times. That's a great scene cut. So this place, I mean, some of you know it, but it's Le Musée des Arts Forains, an old-timey museum of amusement park rides and games. It's fantastic. It's not open all the time. Usually when we visit it, it's around the end of the year, sort of Christmas and New Year's. They open it up to the public. Otherwise, I think you have to reserve a very special time to get a private tour. This place actually looks like this. I mean, this is what it looks like, and you walk from room to room, and it's just all these old-timey museum games and rides. This thing exists too, and you can ride it, and you're just pedaling away, and it goes actually very fast. This museum is in the area called Bercy in the 12th arrondissement towards the east of town. You're both perfect, she says. Here in the Place Dauphine, Rue de la Cité. Sorry, my doorbell's ringing. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that, it was Amazon. So this is supposed to be Pigalle with the working girls, and they actually filmed this right next to Place Pigalle, and like they're actually walking into Place Pigalle. Pont Neuf. Not sure where they filmed this. Um, it feels familiar to me, but hopefully one day I'll. That floral pattern on the left that you see on the tiling, hopefully one day when I see that, I'll know that it was the location of this scene. I don't think it's any of the other. I don't think they're reusing a location that we've seen in the movie, but one day I'll find it. Such great acting in this movie all throughout. I mean, Adrian Brody here just really nails Dali. Buñuel and Man Ray. So this is Woody Allen's little nod to the Surrealists. It's clever that Woody Allen would have, at some point, he needs to tell somebody what's happening. And of course, you have the Surrealists, and they're the perfect group to accept this idea. And they're like, yeah, of course, you live in another time. It's really smart. This actress is Carla Bruni, wife of ex-President Sarkozy. Interesting idea. Is that evolved? Loving two women at the same time? It's funny how it's presented that way, as the French being evolved. This place, detective agency, actually exists. That sign exists right next to the Louvre, the back of the Louvre. This French actor is great, Gad Elmaleh. Well, he's Moroccan. I don't know if he's Moroccan in French. I believe he comes from Morocco, if I'm not mistaken. But he's a stand-up comedian and actor. Gad Elmaleh is fantastic. I really like him. He is in a brilliant movie, a romantic comedy that I adore called Hors de Prix. Horsdeprix. So check that movie out if you. It's a French movie. Hors de Prix with Audrey Tautou, the Amélie actress. Really fun one. So he meets T.S. Eliot here, who just lived in Paris for a year from 1910 to 1911, but he would come back periodically and visit, and he would always meet up with James Joyce, his friend, when he was in town. I love the idea of Gertrude Stein always trying to put out fires in her house. So Hemingway took Adriana away. Ouch, that's a bit of a dig. It's not what you want your fiance to say. You have absolutely nothing to do with Picasso. In real life, he would never walk from the Seine, where he was on the river, up to this flea market. That would take you the better part of the day. Sorry if you can hear my stomach growling. It's lunchtime. Got the classic bouquinistes here. You can see just in the upper right-hand corner a little smidge of Notre Dame, which tells us that where they are. Interesting on the right-hand side too, the graffiti there. Woody Allen chose to include the graffiti. He could have chosen another box for the a different bouquiniste stall, but I think interesting choice there. He wasn't worried about hiding the graffiti. So this is fun because this square behind Notre Dame, where you get this beautiful view of the architecture, there's no bench that exists like this. They placed it here just for the movie, which kind of makes sense because in a park like this, it would be a little bit odd to turn the benches away from the view. So they must have just plopped this down here in this spot for the backdrop. It works for the movies. So she's reading the journal of Adriana. Personally, I'm always jealous of him every time he pops that chocolate. I'm like, ooh, I could go for some chocolates right now. Beef bourguignon. I usually don't make fun of people's pronunciation in real life, of course, but here I wonder if they intentionally had him mispronounce beef bourguignon. Beef bourguignon. It makes me laugh. Ugh, poor guy's constantly getting beat up by these people. bêtise. By the way, Kathy Bates, my hat's off to her for doing well with the French. She speaks quite a bit of French in these scenes. Hmm. So this is a fun place. It's called Des Rôles. It's in the 7th arrondissement. It was a business place opened in 1831 where they were mostly using these taxidermied animals for educational purposes, and they published all these beautiful books on natural history that are now almost collector's items, the originals. And then, of course, they started to taxidermy animals for hunters and things like that. And nowadays, this exists, and you can go in there and you can purchase, or most often you rent these things for like movie sets and things like that. But here, rather than just rent a few for their movie, they just film the whole scene inside the shop itself. It's really spectacular. I recommend you go. And if you go into Des Rôles, the ground floor is very unassuming. You don't see many animals downstairs, but then if you go up just to the next level, that's where all of this is. And make sure you don't take photos because they do not like you to take photos upstairs. So this must be a movie that he did, right? I'm not familiar with it personally, but I assume that's what's happening is he's given him the idea of giving him an idea of a movie that he would go on to make. So we're back at the Place Dauphine where they were a little bit earlier. And they're going to walk up on the left-hand side. This place is called Paul, the name Paul. There's a little bistro there that exists in real life. He's going for it. So note what he says here after the kiss. So he says he felt immortal, which is calling back to when Hemingway said that real, true, passionate love will make you forget about death. Maxims. So then the Belle Époque now. So they actually filmed inside of Maxims here. It's gorgeous. I still plan to treat myself to a fancy, expensive meal here one day. So yeah, Belle Époque, 1890s, turn of the century. Probably pound for pound would be my fantasy. That would be my go-to if I could choose any era. Good old Moulin Rouge. So they didn't film this inside the Moulin Rouge. They used another cabaret that exists a little down the street from it in Montmartre, which is called La Cigale. But this is the original dancers of the Moulin Rouge. There wasn't a stage or a big production necessarily. A lot of the dancing and performing happened right on the ground floor like this, right next to the customers' tables. So this feels pretty authentic in that regard. We know he's a lonely man. It's Toulouse-Lautrec, for those who don't know. Toulouse-Lautrec's parents were cousins, which didn't work out too well. As you know, a lot of the inbreeding in those very sort of noble, wealthy families. So it gave him a bone disease that stunted his growth. So he was quite a short man, but absolutely brilliant. And of course, hung out at the Moulin Rouge all the time. Famous for the posters and the drawings and the paintings he did of the dancers. Iconic images nowadays, but he always had a table at the Moulin Rouge reserved for him because he would spend so much time there. So we've got Gauguin on the right and Degas on the left, if you didn't catch that. She said, I study fashion. He said, oh, that's why you're so elegant. You may have in your version subtitles, so maybe those translations are useless, but... Oh, you see the absinthe. So that sort of yellowish green liqueur there. So it's cool that they made Toulouse-Lautrec drinking some absinthe there with the old bottle. That's beautiful. That makes me in the mood for some absinthe. Who could go for a good absinthe right now? I said that first. The father wants to take credit for it. It's a Versailles. If you don't, I assume you have subtitles, but they were saying off with his head, off with his head. This place is called, today it's called Café Le Siam. Notre Dame is on the right-hand side across from the water. This is just fifth arrondissement, very close to the river. And you all know where this is, it's pretty evident. There we go, it's twinkling. So I also thought this was cool. It's ringing midnight. You're wondering what's going to happen now that he's kind of over the idea of his historical fantasy. The Alexandre III Bridge, Grand Palais in the background. So what's going to happen at midnight? Is anything going to happen? And you have to wait for a minute to see who it is. They don't show you. There's like a reveal. She's a keeper. Back to the Sidney Bechet soundtrack that started the whole thing. It's the most gorgeous bridge at night when they light up those street lamps. And there we go, fade to black. Always feels good to watch that movie. I hope you enjoyed it as well. So I guess we could ask ourselves at the end here, what's the message of this movie? I think it's pretty clear. And I think one reason that it speaks to me so much is because I'm absolutely this character, where I would kind of prefer on most days to imagine myself back in time to another age where all of the, like you said, at the end, life can tend to be a little bit disappointing or sort of underwhelming. And so when we look at those historical periods, of course, we don't see the actual life day to day happening. And once you remove that from the equation, it kind of gets distilled down to the images and the atmosphere in our mind. And, then we're stuck here with our everyday lives. And of course, it's never quite as romantic, moving from one minute to the next and all the various trials and tribulations. So I know I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know, but yeah, I mean, should we give it up? Should we give up this this fantasy of the past? I don't think I'm ready to, but it's a fun thing to contemplate and meditate on for sure. So I won't keep you any longer here. We got through the whole movie. Hopefully you did as well. And I want to remind you that I am doing weekly live stream tours pretty much every weekend here on my YouTube channel. And so you can look for the announcements on my Facebook page or here on YouTube. And you can join me in real time if you're not familiar, where I give I live stream a small tour on the streets of Paris in a different neighborhood. So you can join me for those live on the weekends here, or you can go back and check out the replays here on my YouTube channel. There are several episodes on replay of my previous tours. And also I have a Patreon page if you're interested in supporting the cause here and helping me to continue making various content and things like that and videos, then you'll see the link in the description for my Patreon page. Thanks to everybody who joined me on the premiere, but also thank you to you if you're just watching the regular replay out in the distant future sometime. And I think that's all I want to say. I'm going to let you go. And thanks a lot. Hope you enjoyed this. Maybe we'll do another movie somewhere down the road. So take care and keep dreaming of Paris. And I hope to see you all as a tour guide. Hope to show you around town in person one of these days. Take care. Have a great day. See you.